if you want to take a look at this guy, and all these things are pretty much set up the exact same way. I just go through, grab metals that I want, throw them on, either using the geometry selector or the material ID mask with color materials. And if, I should probably mention this. If you want a quick start guide on my channel, just go to my YouTube channel, and there's a Substance Painter quick start. That'll kind of run you through the basics. And what I actually made this for, I'm going to do Alt Q to toggle all back on. I made this guy for Substance Days, and I did it with a class I teach at CG Master Academy. It's basically part 2 of my ZBrush course that you can find on Gumroad, CubeBrush, but what I do with this class is basically take them through part 2, and at the end of the day, we go through all the part 2 lessons, and I ended up sculpting this guy, and then for Substance Days, I went ahead and game resed him, and Substance Days was a Substance Painter, Substance Designer thing out in California, and I did a couple master classes on that. But all in all, it was pretty quick. I think it was about 35 hours for the high res, maybe a week for the game res. And the game res isn't super tight. I didn't go through and make it super great for like video games or anything. He's a pretty dense guy. But as far as just a painting demo, he served his needs. And for the arm breakdown, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into solo mode with the arm accessories, and then I'm going to turn all the other arm pieces on. So because his arm is so huge, if you put it up next to him, it's the entire size of his lower body, basically. So I didn't want to skimp on texture resolution. I should also probably explain, I have over here, I have intensive computation shadows turned on, so we can get a little bit of a nice shadows here, and also under the shader, I have the quality set at high, so it looks a little bit nicer as we're kind of just tumbling around the object. Also under display settings here, I have anti-aliasing turned on and color correction turned on. I'm just basically doing a slight bit of contrast. Let's go ahead and turn that on. There we go. Get a slight bit of contrast in there. And some anti-aliasing, and then we'll go back to our viewer settings here. So, like I said, for this piece here, it's basically just his arm is broken up into 4 pieces. I'm going to go ahead and select the arm front and go into solo mode, and this is just the front piece here. And this is a fairly simple one, so let's talk about this one. So if I go ahead and turn all this stuff off. So I start out with a weapon metal, and like I said, any smart material you get, you download from Substance Share, or you bring in from your, let me go ahead and do a view, reset UI. Bring in from your smart material tab over here. You can go through and change any of these just to get it exactly what you want. I did varying degrees of that. Some of them I just kept as is. Some of them I changed a bit, but here's a T800 metal. It has a really nice sheen. It has a little bit of rust. If you don't like the rust, or it does a little bit too much rust, obviously you can go in here to your rust levels, dripping dust, and just change these things to kind of lessen that up. You can also add a paint and just paint it out if you'd like. Then we added a blued gun metal for these areas that I wanted. Steel scratch, plastic armor for little plastic pieces, and then matte cover is basically just a black with 0 roughness, and I do that for areas like here where it's supposed to just go straight back, but I kind of cap it early. I go ahead and put that in there. And then for the paint was fun. I'm going to break this down. So if we go, and really it's only 2 things. So we have paint right here, which is just basically a base color, and of course if I want to change this, I can change this to whatever color I'd like, and then added a little bit of height, change the roughness to whatever you want. And if you wanted to break this roughness up, you can drag in a procedural onto the roughness, and or do a fill layer and add a that just controls the roughness and break that up if you'd like. I kept it simple, and I basically just used the brush, one of these Sharpies down here, to kind of just give me, if we just do a search for Sharpie, I think I use Sharpie 1 or 2 or something like that, just to kind of get a paint look. And then to make it even more painty, I did a paint detail pass, which is the same effects or the same layer properties as my original one. You can just hit Control D and that'll duplicate a layer off. And it's got a little bit of height, the same color, but I went through and I actually painted, and I did the levels to kind of change the contrast a little bit. But I went into the Pixelogic Download Center to their paint section with their alphas and just drag those into my alpha section in Painter, and then use that to kind of just give a little bit more detail to make it look like it was painted in layers, and add some splatches like you took a paintbrush, or whoever took a paintbrush and kind of got a little bit messy. And so it just adds a little bit of coolness to it. And I also added a paint folder for this. If you select both of these, hit Control G, that'll just group them into a folder. And then on this paint folder, I actually went in and just did a little bit of, with probably a dirt brush along the edges, just to kind of get rid of some of that. You could also use an edge generator or a smart mask to do that as well, but I just kept it simple. So if I go hit Alt Q to bring everything back, you'll see the rest of the weapon. The rest of the weapon's pretty simple. There's some plastic pieces, there's some text painted on there. Nothing too crazy about that. So I'm going to go ahead and show all. And we can talk about the cloak a little bit. The cloak is just a material with some wear, and then I painted on some decals on that. Let's go ahead and scroll down a little bit. Or I can, Control Alt right click the cloak to select that texture set, and then Alt Q to go into solo. And take a look at this here. And again, like I said, the fabric is just a modified smart material. I painted a little bit of text on there. I painted, my wife calls him Corporal Bill, so I made him a corporal in the Italian army. And then I got some used leather. I used a fabric towel scan to get that Velcro, and I added a little bit of height to that. So I did a fill layer that just controlled the height with a dirt 4 noise, and then I just did a histogram position and go to the height here and just turn that down a little bit just to add a little bit of pebbly height to the Velcro there. And then on top of that, we got some fabric soft denim, which is just what I use to kind of get that ribbing look. And all this stuff is modeled with thickness, so there is actual thickness to all of these straps in here. And of course the text is just painted on, the corporal is painted on, the wear is just painted on. And way down here in the fabric, actually, I have these stitches on there. So the stitches you see here are, of course, just added separately. So we've got, again, the stitches sitting on top of a duplicated version, which is the blurred divot, just like we did on the pouches, just like I did on the boots, just like I did everywhere where there were stitches. And again, that just gives me a little bit more control on the stitching and small details like that. I'm going to go back to all. And then for our cloak here, I'm just going to turn the cloak off, and we'll go ahead and select the body. And you know what, while we're looking at the body, I'm going to go ahead and let's drag this down here. So you can see all my texture sets in here. I'm just going to turn off all the arm parts. We've already looked at that part. There we go. So you just kind of see where his backpack is, and his backpack is basically just this harness that goes around his back that his ammo is attached to here. And the backpack is nothing special, just, metals and plastics assigned, the same old materials. And all you really need to do is if you wanted to make, like I did it for the wear, but if you wanted to do it for these straps, you could save off a smart material for the straps, or even if you have a lot of pieces that use the exact same materials, save it as a smart material and then just drag it onto each texture set. Or you could go through here and just control click or shift click and grab all these and then do copy layers, go to another, again, just hold down control shift and right click any other texture set and then paste those directly into the other texture set, and that'll really speed up your workflow quite a bit, especially if there's a lot of reuse. And the good thing about reuse is it keeps everything consistent, so you have the same colors being chosen and the same properties, so it isn't all over the place. Your metals are somewhat consistent, like it's from the same manufacturer and that type of thing. So you know what? For the backpack, I'm going to go ahead. We've already looked at the ammo bin. The ammo bin's fairly straightforward, like I said, just looks like a painted plastic or painted metal. I've got an explosive decal on there that I basically chewed up using alphas and stuff, gave it a little bit of height to that layer, painted that on. So let's go ahead and get rid of our ammo, and let's get rid of our backpack.